It is just before noon, and the church bells put on a show. Pretty cool, huh? Good morning. We are coming to you today from Soest, Germany. And if you've never heard of Soest, Germany,
don't be surprised.
Don't be surprised. And
it's a very small town.
It is, and there's a very special reason why we are here.
So, over 45 years ago, but not quite 50, I served a mission for our church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, here in Germany, and I spent almost a year here in Soest and talking with the people and sharing a message of Jesus Christ and with them. And so we wanted to come back and let Peggy see this city and
see how it's changed.
Yeah, see how it's changed.
And see how it's not changed.
Right. There's still the Grosser Teich, which is the big pond or lake that's in the middle of town.
Yeah, Soest is a cute town. Many half-timbered houses and buildings.
Some of them quite old.
So today we're going to take you around to the City Hall. We're going to take a look at that. And then there's two churches, right?
There's two churches in the center of town, and there's a couple more outside of town that we'll probably take a look at as well.
One that's from the 1300s? This is a very old town.
There's the oldest one is started in the 1200s. Yeah. And then it was added on to.
But Soest itself was started before 1000 AD.
But yeah, it's mentioned in writings in the 800s.
Yeah.
And it was well established at that point. And archaeological evidence shows that people have been living here for thousands of years.
Their original wall has been, the wall around the city has been preserved. And there's a lot of history that has been preserved that otherwise might have been destroyed.
Right.
So that makes it really interesting. So let's go. No concrete information exists to tell us exactly when Soest, Germany was founded, but the earliest records that mention the town go back to 836 AD. That is almost 1200 years ago. And there is archaeological evidence that it may have existed as long ago as 4,000 years. In its heyday, in the 11th and 12th centuries, Soest was quite the metropolis with around 10,000 people living here. It was ruled over by the Archbishop of Cologne, who decided he wanted more taxes from them. They refused to pay and instead turned to the Duke of Cleves and formed a new alliance. That didn't go over well with the Archbishop of Cologne, and he saw to it that the town suffered economically. The town's fortunes have been up and down since then, but today it's doing just fine, thank you. Soest is located about 31 miles east of Dortmund, Germany, right off the A44. With a population of about 47,000 people, it's a reasonably sized, bustling little city. The main industries now are manufacturing, and there's a major branch of the South Westphalia University of Applied Sciences.
There are two main parts to Soest: the city inside the old wall and the city outside the wall. The wall itself is a character in the city's history. Once it had 10 big gates, several towers, and 2 walls, an inner wall and an outer wall with a moat between them to protect it from intruders. Today, only the east gate is left, but you can see from the remains that the gates were once pretty formidable. Today, about 70% of the original wall still stands, as does one tower, and there are the remains of several other towers easy to spot from the inner wall. The moat has been turned into a really nice bike path with little evidence of its past use. Now the inner wall is a tree-lined walking path with benches on the top of it and is a great place to take a stroll. The city has done a great job of integrating the old wall with modern life. Together, the paths form a really nice park for residents and visitors. Also, in the middle of the city is the lake we mentioned at the beginning of the video. This lake has been a feature here for hundreds of years and continues to be a gathering place for families and friends.
The half-timbered buildings and streets inside the walls speak of an earlier time when Soest was a bustling medieval town known for its salt production. The new Rathaus, built in 1713, still serves as city offices. You might notice that the Soest skyline has 5 steeples, one church with 2 steeples, one church with 1 steeple, a church with a white steeple, and another church with a crooked steeple. These 4 churches dominate the old center of town and form a historic backbone. Let's start with the Cathedral of St. Patrocle. First, who was St. Patrocle? He was a French Christian martyr from about 260 AD. His relics, meaning his mortal remains, were transferred to Soest by the Bishop of Cologne around 960 AD, thus establishing a cathedral here.
This is representation of Germany with a double-headed eagle. This is Soest, and I would assume that this is Westphalia.
The Patrocle is a Roman Catholic parish.
Stained glass windows are new.
Yeah, it kind of looks like they were probably replaced after the war.
Yeah. However,
While we are not certain, we believe this beautiful altarpiece is original to the church and was taken and hidden during the war so that it could be preserved. Just a few steps from Patrocle is St. Maria Zervice, or St. Mary of the Meadow. This is the church with 2 spires and has jaw-dropping floor-to-ceiling stained glass windows. The church was begun in 1313 and served as a Roman Catholic church until sometime after the Reformation. The distinctive 2 spires were added in the 19th century. It currently serves a Protestant congregation. The white steeple of St. Peter and Paul's Church, also known as Aldekirche, is likely the oldest church in Soest, with foundations dating back to the end of the 8th century. It and many of the other old buildings in Soest were made of green sandstone, unique to the area around Soest. St. Peter and Pauli Church is Lutheran. We are on the path by the wall, and this is a perfect view of the old Thomaskirche. And if you look, you can see that the steeple is just a little bit crooked. And it says in the literature that there's a lot of strange stories as to why it's crooked, but the real reason is because the timbers on the inside have rotted, and that's why it's leaning. Okay, so we're sitting in front of, oh, you can hear the music. I so want to go in, but the doors are all locked. This isn't a Reformed Lutheran church, right?
yes.
It's the one that has a crooked steeple we just talked about, right there. And it looks really cool. We can't get in. I'm sad, because they're playing an organ in there. Oh well.
Our hotel is also worth mentioning because it is the oldest building not only in Soest, but all of the state of Westfalen. Built in 1180, the Pilgrim House has been an inn since 1304. Its roots as an inn go back to just after the Crusades, and the Pilgrim House was used by people on pilgrimages to the Way of St. James in northern Spain. The floor in the entryway and this door are original from 1304. There are 4 museums in Soest, but only 2 were open when we were there. We opted to go to the Burgerhoff Museum, and we were very glad we did. The building itself is very old, dating from the 1300s. Inside, it is nicely restored with what appear to be original floors. This was the residence of the mayor and also had the council chambers used at the time. The many rooms housed furniture, dishware, kitchenware, a giant balance scale used to weigh out wheat or oats or other big items.
Oh, wow.
Weights on one side,
Yeah.
the other thing on the other side.
It's a scale.
Clothing,
Don't know who this guy is.
I think he's showing the dress.
Yeah. Except
weaponry,
This is 30 years war.
yeah, this was a bad time. This sword, maybe the oldest thing I think I've ever seen. It's from the 600s. Wow. That's amazing.
This is the time of Karl de Grosse, or as we know him, Charlemagne.
This is from the time of Charlemagne. Wow.
armor, including chainmail,
This is chainmail. Whoa. It's very heavy and very chainmail-y. That's pretty cool.
and even 2 ball and chain sets. It is an excellent snapshot into the medieval past of Soest. Take a look at what we also found there.
It's a shadle. And that's what it is. That's from the 1800s.
1600s.
Yep, that is our last name. Well, the way it used to be spelled. And shadle does indeed mean skull.
This is a very large room. We're not 100% sure yet. Derrick's going to look at see if he can translate it. Big fireplace. Wow.
So the sign on the outside says that it's the council chamber.
So this was
Ridge is all.
the city council chamber.
Yep.
So this museum is in the heart of Soest, and we'll leave some links to it. It does not appear to have any English translations of any of the exhibits. So you would need someone with you that spoke German or a guide that could help you with it, or Google Translate. But it is, how much did it cost, Derrick? It was only €2 each to come into this museum. And it is really quite spectacular. There are a lot of rooms filled with everything from swords and chainmail to decorative 1700s tables and clothing, and just a lot of really, really good information that they've put together in this museum. So, yeah, this is great. This is the Burgerhoff Museum in Soest, Germany, and we totally recommend it.
So just some final thoughts about Soest. It's not really a tourist destination for American tourists.
Yeah, we did see a busload of German people coming in and taking a city tour, but I don't think it's on any American tourist radar at all.
It's more historical and for Germans, and so that's why I think we saw that busload of German tourists that were there. But it's not really on anybody's radar, but maybe it should be.
Yeah, because it has a whole lot of great history.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the buildings and everything are still there,
Really,
which you sometimes can't even see in some of the bigger cities, and it doesn't have all the traffic and the noise.
For the tiny streets.
It does have
in
tiny
the
streets.
interior part of the inside the wall.
Yeah,
there's some
really
pretty
small streets.
Little streets.
A lot of one-way streets.
What do they call it? Einbahn what?
Einbahnstraße.
Einbahnstraße. That means one-way street. And they're really only one way because you can't get 2 cars down some of those streets.
That's really true.
It's really true that it's, but it's really well preserved. I mean, Derrick has told me for 40 years about that wall and how they made it a park, and it really was very lovely. We had a really nice time.
In a lot of the other cities, they took the wall down And they made it into a really nice wide street,
Right.
but the wall's gone.
Right.
It's completely gone.
So that piece of history is also gone.
Yeah.
And Soest has opted to use it another way instead of tearing it completely down. But they did take the section out for the train station.
Yeah. When the train came in, they took down a piece
But
of the wall.
70% of the original wall
Walls.
from the
That's
medieval
amazing.
times is really amazing.
Yeah.
And then that little museum
That was really cool.
Really cool. And then the Pilgrim House where we stayed was just terrific. I mean, that's a really old building.
It's the oldest in Westfalen.
Now in that hotel, it was a nice hotel. The part where we stayed was great. There is no elevator.
Right.
In fact, we ran into a couple of hotels in this
Yeah.
trip where there was no elevator. So we had to haul our luggage up 3 or 4 flights of stairs. It didn't kill us. We did just fine, but just be aware of that.
Right.
So the Pilgrim House, great place to stay in the middle of the old city, inside the wall, and
It's really fun.
tons of great history and really good food.
Yes.
The food was great. The service was great. Yeah, it was a nice stay. So we think that if you are in Germany and you have the opportunity to venture out on your own, you should put Soest on your itinerary.
For sure.
And we think you'll be glad you did. For more adventures and more fun, make sure you hit that subscribe button.
Give us a thumbs up if you like the video and ring the bell to get notified.
You bet. And until next time, Restless Friends, you take care.
Tschüss.